Racist student refuses to move from black teen's desk, instantly regrets his words. The morning hum of the school corridors shattered the moment Ethan Cole lounged across Malik Johnson's desk, one leg dangling, the other tapping a slow, mocking rhythm. Laughter ricocheted through the room, casual yet cutting, and phones flickered to life as students recorded the spectacle. Malik paused at the doorway, hoodie zipped halfway, backpack slung over one shoulder. He didn't rush in. He didn't yell. He simply watched. Ethan's grin widened, venom disguised as charm. "This desk isn't for people like you," he sneered, nudging a pile of papers under his sneaker. The words landed with practiced cruelty. Around them, whispers twisted into a collective buzz of anticipation, eyes darting between the newcomer and the self-proclaimed king of the classroom. Malik didn't react immediately. Instead, he stepped in with measured precision, placing his bag on the floor and letting silence stretch, thick enough to feel like a physical weight pressing against every shoulder. He glanced at Ethan, steady, unflinching, and for the first time that morning, the smirk faltered. Because sometimes, the person everyone underestimates doesn't need to shout to be heard. And today, Malik was about to prove that some lines aren't furniture. They're boundaries that, once crossed, change everything. Malik stepped into the classroom like he owned the space, though the room whispered otherwise. His backpack swung gently at his side, and the weight of it was nothing compared to the calm he carried. Every eye flicked toward him, curiosity laced with the faint buzz of anticipation, as if the air itself was holding its breath. Ethan Cole had already claimed the center of attention, sprawled across a desk with a casual arrogance that made the floorboards creak under his confidence. His sneaker tapped a slow, rhythmic beat, each thump punctuating the smirk on his face. A few students giggled nervously. Some nudged each other, while others couldn't resist recording the scene on their phones. The room felt alive, taut like the moment before a storm breaks. Malik paused at the threshold, surveying the room with eyes sharp but controlled. Ms. Ramirez's pen hovered over the gradebook mid-mark, her brows knitting together in that small, almost imperceptible way that hinted she was about to intervene. Jaden, sitting in the back, straightened in his chair, sensing the tension spike. The walls seemed to lean in. Every detail mattered. Ethan leaned forward, voice a slow drawl. "You sure you want this seat?" He nudged a pile of papers under his sneaker, scattering them across the floor with casual cruelty. The sound cracked like glass. Malik set his backpack down with deliberate care, not a flinch, not a word. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. The silence stretched, palpable, filling the classroom like fog. A weight settled over the students, a quiet warning that this wasn't just about a desk. Something deeper was about to unfold. For a moment, the mundane hum of fluorescent lights faded into nothing, leaving only the unspoken challenge between Malik and Ethan. And in that frozen space, everyone could feel it. Today would not follow the usual rules, and no one in that room would leave unchanged. Ethan smirked, leaning even closer, letting his words cut the air. "You think this seat belongs to you?" He tapped his sneaker against the metal frame, sending papers tumbling to the floor. Laughter trickled from a few students, but it was uneasy, tinged with the thrill of watching someone else's power tested. Malik stepped forward, measured, precise, like every step was calculated. His gaze didn't waver from Ethan's, and the room seemed to shrink around them. Desks that had been empty moments ago felt like boundaries. Every student felt the magnetic pull of the brewing storm. Ms. Ramirez's hand froze mid-air, pen hovering over a gradebook, as if she feared disturbing the tension. "You sure you want to sit there?" Malik's voice was quiet, controlled, yet every syllable hit like a subtle shockwave. Ethan's grin faltered for the briefest second, then returned with a laugh loud enough to echo in the hallway. "What? You gonna do something about it?" His words carried the kind of arrogance that came from knowing he had a stage and an audience. Malik tilted his head slightly, eyes sharp, unreadable. "I don't need to prove anything, but you might want to think carefully about your next move." The classroom shifted under the weight of those words. Some students leaned forward instinctively. Others pressed backs into chairs, sensing a line they couldn't yet define. Ethan's confidence wavered, just slightly, like a candle flickering in a breeze. His smirk didn't disappear, but the sharp edge dulled. The room held its breath, and even the fluorescent lights above seemed to pause. Every student felt it. Something was about to break, and it wasn't going to be Malik. The sharp click of polished shoes echoed down the aisle before anyone could react. Principal Howard stepped in, eyes sweeping the room like a hawk gliding silently over its prey. His presence wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that immediately slowed every heartbeat in the classroom. Ethan's smirk wavered, the casual arrogance suddenly meeting resistance he hadn't anticipated. Howard's gaze landed first on Malik, steady and unflinching, then slid to Ethan lounging across the desk. "Everything okay here?" His voice was calm, measured, yet the edge beneath it sliced through the air like a quiet blade. The room seemed to exhale, tension coiling into a tense silence. Ethan straightened slightly, attempting to mask the uncertainty now flickering in his eyes. "Just showing the new kid where the real seats are," he said, trying to regain control, but the words lacked the bite they had held moments ago. Howard didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, the polished soles of his shoes clicking against the tile, each step deliberate. "Do you know whose desk you're sitting at?" he asked, eyes narrowing slightly. Ethan hesitated. "Some transfer kid. Who cares?" His voice was defensive now, thinner, the casual cruelty melting under scrutiny. Malik didn't flinch, didn't move. His calm presence only seemed to amplify Ethan's discomfort. The room was electric. Students leaned forward, whispers suppressed, as every eye fixed on the unfolding confrontation. Howard's tone dropped, deliberate, like a gavel striking an unseen podium. "You should care. This is the desk of Raymond Johnson's son." The name hit the room like a live wire. Gasps rippled through the students. Phones were raised instinctively, recording, capturing the shock that settled over the classroom. Even Ethan blinked, his carefully constructed confidence cracking. Malik remained silent, letting the weight of authority and reputation fill the space between them. Ethan shifted, glance darting to the back of the room, hoping for backup or distraction, but found none. The smirk that had defined him for the morning now wavered, uncertain, and the classroom itself seemed to lean in closer to witness the unfolding reckoning. Howard gestured toward the hallway, voice low but commanding. "We'll continue this in my office, Mr. Cole. Everyone else, back to your work." The shuffle of chairs and papers began, but even as students returned to their assignments, the air remained taut, heavy with the realization that lines had been drawn. Malik, calm as ever, stepped forward, took his seat, and the room felt the quiet ripple of respect settling in earned, not demanded, but undeniable. When the door closed behind Ethan and Principal Howard, the hum of conversation returned in small bursts. Whispers, half-laughs, and the quiet tap of pencils against desks. But under it all, a current of awe buzzed through the air. The kind of silence that says something real just happened. Malik sat down slowly, pulling the chair forward with quiet precision. The same desk that had been claimed through mockery only minutes ago now felt transformed, not because it was reclaimed, but because everyone in the room had seen what real composure looked like. Jaden, the kid in the back who rarely spoke, murmured on his way to the sharpener, "Guess he won't touch your desk again." Malik didn't respond. He uncapped his pen, flipped open his notebook, and began to write, calm, collected, unbothered. His silence said more than any insult ever could. Behind the door, faint echoes of raised voices leaked from the principal's office. Ethan's voice, thinner now, laced with desperation. The hallway outside buzzed with rumors spreading like wildfire. Within an hour, everyone in the school would know. By lunch, Malik couldn't take 5 steps without eyes following him. Not with mockery now, but with a mix of respect and curiosity. Students who had once looked past him gave nods of quiet acknowledgement. Some whispered his name like a secret they'd just discovered. He didn't smile. That wasn't his way. Respect wasn't a trophy to be displayed. It was a lesson to be lived. He wasn't proud of humiliating Ethan. That was never the goal. It was about something deeper. About standing his ground without shouting, proving that control isn't loud, it's steady. In a world where people like him were often expected to bow, Malik showed what it looked like to rise without raising a hand. Every step he took down the hallway carried a silent message. Power isn't granted, it's recognized. That afternoon, as he packed his books, Malik glanced at the desk one last time. The same sunlight that had fallen on Ethan's smug face now gleamed against Malik's open notebook. For the first time that day, he allowed himself a small exhale, not satisfaction, but peace. Because deep down, he knew something Ethan didn't. Dominance fades fast, but dignity endures. By the next morning, the story had traveled far beyond classroom walls. Whispers followed Malik through the corridors, like wind through tall grass. Some admired him, others avoided him. But everyone knew his name now, and the name tied to it. Ethan, once the loudest in the room, was nowhere to be seen. Rumor said he'd been suspended for a week. Some claimed he'd been crying in the office. Others said his father tried calling the district. None of it mattered to Malik. He wasn't looking for revenge. He was looking for peace. When he entered the classroom that day, the same desk stood exactly as he'd left it. No one dared to lean on it, sit near it, or even place a backpack across its surface. Not because it was his, but because it now represented something they all understood. There are boundaries that shouldn't be crossed, and sometimes the quietest people draw the deepest lines. Ms. Ramirez greeted him with a nod, a small smile flickering at the corner of her lips. Not pity, but respect. Malik nodded back. That was enough. The day carried on. Lessons, notes, the steady rhythm of pencils scratching paper. But under the surface, something had shifted in the room. The same students who had laughed now watched him differently, not as the new kid from the east side, but as someone who had forced them to look at themselves. During lunch, Jaden slid into the seat across from him in the cafeteria. "Hey," he said, "what'd your dad really do?" Malik looked up from his sandwich, his tone even. "He builds things," he said. "Schools, community centers. Places people forget matter until they're gone." Jaden nodded slowly, letting it sink in. "Guess it runs in the family, huh?" Malik's lips curved just slightly. "Guess so." When the final bell rang, he walked home beneath a wide orange sky, backpack slung over one shoulder. The wind tugged at the corners of his notebook, pages fluttering with half-finished thoughts. He paused at the corner of Ridge and Maple, the same street his father's first construction site once stood. The sign still bore the Johnson name, faded but unbroken. He smiled, faint but real. Not because Ethan had been punished, but because Malik had done something his father always said mattered more than any victory. He held his ground without losing himself. Back at school, that desk would become a quiet symbol. New students would sit there someday, never knowing what had happened before, but the lesson would linger in the air. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just refuses to move. Malik didn't win through anger. He won through presence. And that's the kind of victory that echoes long after the noise dies down. If this story left you thinking about what respect really means, or what silence can teach, share your thoughts below. Because in every room, someone's watching, learning where the real strength lies. Sometimes, the loudest voice is the one that never has to raise itself.